This is my final project, automation in Microsoft Azure, realizing the cloud value proposition through elastic computing by Karen Huey. In this video, I'll go through realizing that cloud value proposition by giving an introduction and then kind of an explanation on elastic computing, going over some examples on costing relating to on-prem and then the cost in an elastic environment. I'll go over the AZ technologies that I used in building my automation and go over some of the install, config, and setups. And then I'll do a demonstration and some brief retrospectives on what I learned. So many companies today are faced with the decision of introducing cloud computing as they continue to build out and refresh their current environment. This is a very challenging discussion for most technical leaders, as the business is typically used to looking at cost benefit in a traditional apples to apples evaluation method, which is not the way to evaluate this shift. To properly compare the two environments and effectively articulate the benefits of the cloud, you must really grasp and appreciate the concept of elastic computing. In my project, I'm addressing that challenge by creating and articulating an approach that would demonstrate the cloud's value by showing it is not just an extension or a forklift of the data center, but a true elastic environment that can be financially right-sized with automation tools and create a landscape that can flex and shrink with the behaviors of the business and forever learn and adapt. So what is elastic computing? So according to Microsoft Azure, elastic computing is the ability to quickly expand and decrease computer processing, memory, and storage resources to meet changing demands without worrying about capacity planning and engineering for peak usage. Typically controlled by system monitoring tools like I'm showing in this demo, elastic computing machines matches the amount of resources allocated to the amount of resources actually needed without disrupting operations. So without cloud elasticity, a company avoids paying for unused capacity or idle resources and doesn't have to worry about investing in purchase or maintenance of additional resources and equipment. So here's my example on 512 cores using an on-premise computing model. So as you can see, the 128 cores in the various environments makes up the 512, and the cost here for the annual spend is $96,000 and a 3-year cost is $294,000. Here's that example again in a cloud computing environment, showing that core usage across the environments from QA to dev, prod, DR, all the way across all platforms, distributed out, and then using the consumption percentages of when you're actually going to be using it by turning it off and then turning it back on. Calculated out with those percentages, you end up with where it was before on premises $8,000 per month for those cores. It's now $5,000, so you're looking at it close to a $3,000 per month savings on that environment. So the value proposition summary is the $3,000, which is over 3 years, $97,000. Then I've added on, because of my automation environment that I'm going to build out, also the ability to size up and down. And using some samples and looking at some statistics, I figured that would be about an 80% savings. So we had an additional savings on top of what was originally at $5,000, bringing it down to $400. So looking at gaining another $887,000. So the 3-year cost savings from one environment to the other is about $130K. The technologies that I use, here's my dashboard in Azure. I've got my automation runbooks right here. One is the shutdown, startup. This is the scale down, the scale up. I have my automation account, and I have my VM. The technologies I used inside of those were in the automation accounts. I use runbooks, and within runbooks I used webhooks and schedule. In the compute I used VM tags, access control, and the virtual machine metric alert rule, and then the access control. Other tools that I used outside of Azure was a CPU stress test tool. Here's the startup shutdown configuration in my automation account. I've got the automation account itself created in my resource group, and I have my access control. I actually set up the account auto with the right credentials in order to accomplish the startup and shutdown. After I created my automation account, I went into the runbooks and downloaded from the runbooks gallery this startup shutdown script right here that shows where the blue arrow is. Here's just the account setup that I had to, the credentials that I had to add to that account. And then here is the modified script that I downloaded from the gallery. I had to correct the hash table keys and values retrieval so that it could actually do the match and do the shutdown. And then I published that change. I created under that runbook a schedule, and this is an hourly schedule, so it goes and looks whether or not within the hour that it's running, whether your maintenance window, you should be in or out. If you're in, you should be shut down. If you're out, you should be started up. On the scale up, scale down, I imported the scripts below from the runbooks gallery. I didn't have to modify them. Here's the two arrows showing the ones that I imported. I didn't have to modify them. I could publish them as is. And here's where I added under the corresponding runbooks scale up, scale down were the webhooks that I'm using to actually trigger from my VM. So here's the added alert rules I put into the VM for the runbooks, and here's the two showing right here correspond to the two different webhooks that I've got. This slide right here is just a visualization of the results on the VM. That first arrow right here is where we actually had the startup based on the maintenance window. It had been down the entire night, and then after 6 a.m. The script ran and started it back up. And then you can see as it moved in towards the day that my VM was being resized based on CPU utilization, being over 50% or under 1%. And here down below is the activity lab showing those events. And as you can see right here, here is the VM. It was stopped, and I'm updating it right now to bring it back up. And then I'm going to show you, I'm going to actually bring up the VM, connect to it, and put on the stress test and watch it go through its resizing. CPU running, performance running on the left hand side. On the right hand side I have the CPU stress tool that I have put into activity busy mode so that it'll throw this VM into over 60% utilization. So what will happen is every 5 minutes my sizing script runs and we'll look at this VM being over 50 and it'll actually bring it down. And as it has one processor right now, it'll bring it down and bring it back up under 2. Our minutes so that the script could see that it was over the threshold for utilization CPU and resize it. Here we are now in Azure looking at our VM. Now it's 2 processors. So the script worked as its intended purpose, right, of resizing based on the utilization. Thank you very much for watching this demo and viewing my PowerPoint presentation.